More than 100 people are dead after a massive prison fight in Ecuador. Ian Lee's in London following this story, as well as other international stories and some breaking news out of London for us, Ian.
That riot in the Ecuadorian jail on Tuesday was the worst prison violence in the country's history. At least 116 people died in the fight between rival gangs. Now, this uprising began around 2 in the afternoon when inmates from one wing attacked rivals in a different one. There are reports that grenades were used in the assault. It took 400 police officers hours to eventually regain control. Many of the inmates are thought to have ties to Mexican drug cartels. Ecuador's president has declared a state of emergency in the prison system, which he admitted last July was already 30% over capacity. Next, we are learning more about the murder of Sarah Everard here in the UK. Wayne Couzens, the former police officer who admitted to kidnapping, raping, and killing her, used his police badge and handcuffs to deceive her into getting into his car. Prosecutors say he detained her under the pretense she broke COVID rules. Everard went missing after leaving a friend's house in South London. Her body was found 4 days later, and we are getting that breaking news. A court has handed him a whole life sentence, which means that he will spend the rest of his days in prison. We are moving on to China now, where you can attend next year's Winter Olympics in Beijing, but only if you live in mainland China. This is part of the strict zero COVID strategy ahead of the games. The International Olympic Committee also revealed the capital will be turned into a bubble. Fully vaccinated athletes and participants will be allowed to enter without quarantining, and those who aren't will have to spend 21 days in quarantine. The games are set to open on February 4th. Finally, we have an important story out of Canada. The country's federal court has dismissed the government's attempt to avoid paying Indigenous children who suffered welfare discrimination. And this case dates back to 2016 when a tribunal ruled the government underfunded First Nations children's services compared to those for non-Indigenous children. They must now pay more than $30,000 to each child who was forced to leave their home to access the services. And Emery, the Canadian government said it will review the ruling. This latest ruling, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he wanted to make sure they got the compensation right, but organizations supporting First Nations children are calling the verdict a complete win for kids.
Well, you know, the thing about it, Ian, is the country is going through sort of a national reckoning about how it has treated its Indigenous population, specifically children. I know you recall the stories of finding unmarked graves at residential schools for Indigenous children. And, you know, the country has been asking itself, how do you make things right? How do you compensate after so many decades of so many wrongs? And this is all part of that. Ian, thank you so much.
Very important, yeah.